Hi guys, today we're going to be talking about the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. I'll try my best to make this a very short video. Now, the Sarbanes-Oxley Act was introduced in 2002. The main purpose for introducing this act was to prevent corporate frauds. This act happened after the Enron case and the case of WorldCom. Now, the Enron case, what essentially happened in the Enron case was this company, this energy company, Enron, they were showing very inflated profits. They were showing profits that were to happen later. They were showing it in the present year. So I have some notes on the Enron case. So fake profits. Enron used tricky accounting to pretend it was making money when it wasn't. For example, it reported profits it might make in the future as if it had already earned them. That's one thing they were doing wrong. Another thing that they were doing wrong was hiding debt. So essentially what Enron did is they made these special purpose entities, or you could call them shell companies, and it would move its debt of its own records into the records of the special purpose entities. Now, what this did was it made Enron seem a lot less leveraged than it actually was, and it showed a much better financial position to stakeholders. Also, Enron had auditors that there was some conflict of interest with these auditors. So Arthur Andersen was not only an auditor for Enron, they were also providing Enron with consulting services. Now, obviously, if you have a client that is committing financial fraud, but they are also providing you huge revenues when it comes to your consulting department, you are not going to address that fraud. You're going to overlook it. You're going to ignore it. You're going to say, you're fine, whatever. You're providing me with lucrative fees for my consulting business, so I'm not going to mess with you. You don't mess with me, I don't mess with you, right? It works both ways. So there was a bunch of very suspicious activity going on with Enron, which is why the Sarbanes-Oxley Act happened, because once that activity was discovered, Enron was completely dissolved, and then a lot of shareholders, a lot of stockholders lost their money, right? So preventing big corporate frauds like those involving Enron and WorldCom. These companies used fake accounting tricks and shell companies to make their financials look better than they really were. As a result, investors and the public were misled. And when the truth came out, these companies collapsed, causing massive losses. So Sarbanes-Oxley was created to ensure that businesses operate honestly, take responsibility, and prevent such frauds in the future. Now, some very key provisions of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. So top executives, your CEOs, your CFOs, they have to sign off on the financial statements or the financial reports of the company. They have to, when they're signing, they're essentially saying that we've checked this and this is true, this is accurate, there's nothing wrong with it. Furthermore, they are also responsible for having proper systems in place to control and check the data to make sure everything is accurate. So the burden or the responsibility of accuracy and honesty in the financial reports does lie with the top executives or the leadership or the management of the company. Furthermore, trading and reporting internal controls. So every company has to check its financial systems. You have to check your controls. You have to check how well your controls are working. You need to write about these checks in your annual reports, the checks that you conducted. If you have any problems, if you find anything that's amiss, you have to tell everyone, you have to tell the public, you have to tell the stakeholders. You also have to have an outside auditor or an independent checker verify your controls and if they're working well. And then reporting changes. If something important changes in the company's finances, you have to tell the public right away. You have to keep the public, or you have to keep the investors in the loop. You have to tell them everything that's going on. And if you are discovered, if your fraud is discovered, then you will be imprisoned, or you will have to pay big fees or big fines. It's illegal to change documents to hide fraud. Anyone who submits false financial reports is going to face serious penalties. Now, these rules, of course, why are they important? Because Sarbanes-Oxley requires companies to keep accurate financial reports that are easy to verify. All financial data must come from reliable sources. Any changes to the data or system must be fully documented. Now, main areas of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, these were just 6 areas, very easy to learn. So first of all, you need to have an independent oversight board. This board is going to be called the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board. And it's basically just going to watch over accounting firms. Are they engaging in any unethical activity? Are they following the strict rules that are imposed on them? Are they doing their job properly? Just very general things. Then auditor independence. Now, this is very important. The auditor cannot have an interest in your company, cannot have a personal interest in your company. For instance, Arthur Andersen did have a personal interest in Enron. Enron was a consulting client, not only an auditing client, but a consulting client for Arthur Andersen. So of course they would overlook and make active efforts to hide the fraud. And then corporate responsibility. So company leaders, for instance, your CEOs and your CFOs are going to be held accountable for the financial reports. If something's wrong, the CFOs cannot say that I don't know about this, because the financial reports are going to have to be signed off by the CEOs and CFOs, and they're going to have to sign them off saying that we've checked them, these are true, there's nothing wrong with them. So if something does come out later that was wrong, that you just can't say that I didn't know, because it was signed by you. Okay. Moreover, you have to have transparent reporting. So companies have to provide detailed financial information. If there's any debts, if there's any risk, if there's any unusual transactions, you have to make that known. You cannot hide it. As Enron did, right? Enron was heavily in debt, but they didn't show that debt. They just made these special purpose entities and they transferred all the debt, and they made themselves look a lot better than they actually were. So they were deceiving or misleading their stockholders. People were investing in Enron, even though it was going through substantial losses. Things were not right with Enron. People were investing with Enron. And when they found out, when Enron collapsed, all these people lost their money. So again, companies have to provide detailed financial information. Lastly, you have to, fifth point, you have to protect investors. You have to ensure that the financial analysts that you're using, the financial analysts that you're hiring or employing, they're following all the rules and regulations that are necessary and are giving you sound financial advice. So again, it's all about protecting investors. It's all about being transparent with investors. It's all about having transparency in your reporting, taking responsibility, having accountability, having an auditor that checks your reports to make sure nothing's wrong. It's all about eliminating any form of suspicious activity that's going on. And lastly, very obvious, criminal penalties for fraud. So Sarbanes-Oxley, what it did is it introduced very, very long sentences, long jail sentences for executives who are lying about financial fraud. Again, this is the Enron scandal, which I already discussed. So fake profits, hiding debt, conflict of interests. And when Enron's fraud was exposed, in 2001, the fraud was exposed. And then in 2002, Sarbanes-Oxley came into being. But when Enron's fraud was exposed, what happened is the company collapsed, completely collapsed. And all the employees and investors they suffered huge losses. And then Arthur Andersen, which was the auditing firm, it was also ruined. It was also dissolved. Now, Arthur Andersen was not a joke. Arthur Andersen was operating in 84 countries. It had 85,000 employees. It was a very big deal. It was one of the biggest auditing firms in the world. But because of this scandal, it was dissolved because there was a conflict of interest. And the scandal was one of the main reasons for the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. We would not have had this act without the Enron scandal, without the WorldCom scandal. And I would encourage you all to learn more about these. Now, why does it matter today? Again, it promotes a lot of accountability. The whole purpose of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, what is it? It's to make sure that something like Enron doesn't happen again. You're transparent with your stakeholders. You're taking responsibility for the financial reports. You cannot say that I didn't know what was happening, right? I was completely unaware. You cannot say that. The management, the company leaders are taking responsibility. They're signing off the financial reports. Then you have an auditor that's independent. He doesn't have any personal interest in your company. So of course he's going to check your reports thoroughly. The whole purpose is to promote transparency. It's to protect investors. It's to make sure that you are not lying, that you are taking accountability, that you are being held responsible for the actions of your company. Thank you so much. And that was it.